There are many stories about how things come to be. Many stories, many theories. And that's what we begin with in this chapter. It's the theory that arises from the condensation of the finer elements from space through to air, fire, water and earth. That's not really what this chapter is about, but it does begin with this. Vasistha continued, the subtle sound vibration constitutes space. It's interesting, isn't it, that space is a subtle sound vibration. And the subtle touch vibration constitutes air. So it's vibrations. Their friction causes heat or the fire element. When the fire subsides, there is water. When all these get together, earth arises from it. But all these are a play of simple vibrations which are formless. So it's all vibrations. From the scientific perspective, it's all electricity, which itself is a form of vibration. All our senses, all our experience of the phenomenal universe is electrical signals which are delivered by our senses. That's the scientific story anyway. It doesn't really matter what story we have, whether we believe in the condensation of the traditional elements or we have some theory from physics, from modern physics. It doesn't really matter because this is it, it's just a play of vibrations. How does that relate to our actual experience? How do the electrical signals that our senses apparently give us relate to our whole subjective experience of the world? How does an electrical signal relate to the experience of the sight of the moon? Because that's what science tells us. What we see as the moon is an electrical signal which has been transformed into a model which is the image of the moon. We're not really seeing what's there apparently, we're just getting a model, an electrical model, which we experience as the sight of the moon. And if that scientific story strikes you as rather absurd, well then it should. How does form arise? How does the experience of form, of shape, of colour arise? After reflecting on this for a considerable time, and this is what you're supposed to do, reflect upon this phenomenon, the phenomenon of perception, for a considerable time, one comes to the understanding that it is consciousness that gives rise to form. Why not understand this truth right in the beginning? When you do understand it, it becomes so obvious, blindingly obvious, that it's all consciousness, it's all awareness, it's all your attention. Neither the gross elements nor the forms exist in truth. At best, science will tell us what we experience is a model of what is out there. There's supposed to be something out there, and we've got a model of it in here. But that doesn't make any sense whatsoever when you start looking at it into detail. What is it that's experiencing the model? Science is very good at giving us this model and telling us about this model. But what use is a what use is a model? There has to be something for the there has to be something to receive the model. There has to be something that appreciates the model. But science just tells us, no, there's only a model. There's no mechanism for what is appreciating the model. There's no scientific understanding for what is appreciating the model. So reflect upon this, look into it. Look into it from a scientific perspective. Be rational. There's no item of faith here that you're being asked to accept. What's being questioned is your items of faith. Your items of faith in whatever religion you might hold, including whatever scientific stories you might be adhering to. Because if you're not religious, You've probably got quite a big thing about science. Science has got stories which just don't add up any more than the stories of mythology or religion add up. So look into it, look into perception. How do you actually perceive anything? What is it that's doing the perceiving? Science gives us a model of perception, but doesn't tell us how that model is perceived. Well, in fact, when you start looking into it, there is no model. There is no model, it's just a story. It's just a story which we're told, which consciousness concocts for itself. It plays a game of hide and seek with itself. So why not understand this truth right in the beginning? Neither the gross elements nor the forms exist in truth. They arise as they arise in a dream. In a dream we don't have to explain how things arise. We could come up with all these theories in a dream as well, couldn't we? If we're in the dream, we could start coming up with theories of perception in a dream. We could start analysing how our senses work when we're in a dream. Maybe we're a cognitive scientist in our dream. You dream that you're a cognitive scientist and you're studying perception and how the eyes work. Now, is that how the eyes work in a dream? You can see that in the dream your eyes have got absolutely nothing to do with perception. But we believe in the dream, we believe they do though, don't we? As forms arise in dreams, so do they arise in the waking state too. If this is realized, there is liberation. Whether the body continues to exist or cease to exist, there is no sorrow. This existence of the body, one way or the other, is part of the traditional thinking that if you get liberated, then you go beyond the body. But what you go beyond is any notion of the body. You're no longer caught up in notions of the body, which is to do with notions of the senses. Once you're no longer caught up in notions of the senses and notions of perception, then the body becomes irrelevant, because the body is basically the carrier of the senses. It's the embodiment of the senses. When I say the body becomes irrelevant, it becomes irrelevant as a notion. It's a notion that we don't need to pin our beliefs on anymore.